Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a long time since I posted a video on here because of the holidays on here. I hope that all of you guys had a great holidays as I did. But now it's back to some serious business on here. We're going to get back to the modifications here on our Arcade 1-Up machines. And I know I've got tons of messages. There's been a lot of comments on the videos. I haven't got a chance to get back to all those because of the holidays, but I'm going to try to answer all of those. And hopefully with this video, actually, I'm going to try to resolve all the issues or problems that you may have had with the previous images, whether it was the switches, whether it's been the controls on here haven't played in your favor. You know, I'm gonna fix all that because tonight we're releasing what's called the default. It's your starter pack on here, which is gonna have basically, it's gonna start with nothing. It's going to start with, and we're going to configure everything on here step by step. I'm going to show you the tutorial, how to do that, how to set your controls on here, how to set your hotkeys and everything, how to put all the images and everything on here. So right now in the description part, you're going to see two downloads, two images. One of them is a Arcade 1-Up default horizontal image, and the other one is a vertical image. So depending which cabinet you're using, if you're using, let's say, one of the Pac-Mans or the Centipede, obviously you're going to go with the vertical download. And then if you're using like the Final Fight or the Street Fighter or the Rampage, then you're going to want to download the horizontal. So that's the only difference in there is between the two images, how the display and the images will come out. So this way you'll get the right rotation on the screen and the right picture format on there. So download that on here and make sure you have all the items on here. I'm going to show you guys what you basically need in this build on here. All my builds are Raspberry Pi builds, you know, on here, and also none of my builds include or require for you to do any type of drilling, adding buttons, or changing anything on the control deck on there. So if you're one or skeptical on here, or this is your first time modifying something like this, whether and you're kind of worried, or you don't know if it's the right thing for you, hey, listen, you'll be able to get it back to stock if need to. So because we don't make any other adjustment modifications to the machine on here, you could always plug everything back in and resort back to the stock if need be, you know. But if not, if you want to go with the mod on here, let's take a look here first what items you need here in the build. So you're definitely going to need one of these. This is your video converter because the way the monitor is set up on the Arcade 1-Up machine and how our Raspberry Pi is, this will allow us to connect our wires to the Pi so we could use our HDMI wires on here. So here's the HDMI wire. You're going to plug your Arcade 1-Up power switch here, and if you're using the stock speaker, you want to still use the stock, this is where the stock speaker will go, or you could plug it into an amp if you choose to download an amp. And then the three wires, once you disconnect the monitor on there in the back, you'll have three wires. One will be a ground wire, which will go here. And then, actually you could use any of the grounds, but I prefer using this one, so it's close to this one here, because they're kind of connected together. And then here's the other wire. Make sure your red is on the left, blue on the right, otherwise you'll run into a lot of problems here. And make sure they're in the pins. If you get, let's say, a video comes out and it's you get like these green colors, or the colors are off, that's because right here it might not be on all the pins, or maybe you bent one of the pins on there so it's not completely in. So make sure that straighten these pins out and make sure yours goes right in there, otherwise you'll run to that issue. And here's the other the wire, and that's it. That's all that you're gonna plug. You're gonna need that, and here's the switch if you need it. There's a power switch here. The one from Do It Yourself Retro Arcade is this one actually, which does come with this. It has the power, and there's also a volume on and off with a menu switch on here. Some of them might not have this or include this. This one does. So if you want to make any adjustments to the volume, this does include that. Obviously, you're going to need a Raspberry Pi, preferably either a Raspberry Pi 2B or a 3B, 3B Plus, or A Plus on here, which is this one, depending how many USBs you need and which one you're modifying. Definitely going to need a SD card. Doesn't have to be big. All my images on here, 8 gigabytes is more than enough. And then you're going to need a USB encoder. Okay, this will allow to get the joystick into our USB, so it could plug into the Pi on here. And once again, depending which machine, if let's say you're doing a Street Fighter, Final Fight, you're going to need 2 of these. Rampage, you'll need 3. Unless you're using a 2-player USB encoder, then you'll need 1 less. But yeah, basically once you have all of this on here, I'm gonna go to the computer now. Use a Mac on here. If you're on the PC, you're gonna use Windows Win32 Disk Imager to transfer your file. On the Mac, I use Apple Pi Baker on there to put my image on the SD card, because you can't just move the file onto the card. You need to write it in order for it to boot up. Otherwise, this ain't gonna boot up. So make sure you do that. Like I said, the Win32 Disk Imager if you're on the PC, or the Apple Pi Baker if you're on the Mac, or even Etcher. You could use any of those. It works fine on there. I'll be showing you from the Mac on the Apple Pi Baker. Simple procedure. You load it up. It's gonna have you select your drive on there where your SD card is. Have that selected. Then you're gonna select the image, wherever the image is. Now the image you download is gonna be in zip format, so just make sure you unzip that on there, and then select the image file, and then you're basically just gonna write it in. Once that's done, it's created. Join me on the actual machine. We're going to plug it in on here, and let's go there now. Alright, so here's the initial setup. You've downloaded the image, you wrote it in onto the SD card, we just plugged it in, and this is the same image that you're going to get on here. And once you load it up, it's going to bring you to this welcome screen configuration, because we don't have anything inputted on there. As it detected, my 2 gamepads are on there and stuff. So right now we're going to configure both of our joysticks. And I also like to configure input our keyboard on there. So if you have a keyboard, plug it in on there, because it will help on here to navigate through some of these screens on there with the keyboard. So that's what I'm going to do first. First I'm going to configure my keyboard on here. So just press any button, hold any button down on the keyboard, and it'll bring you to this dialog box. And we're gonna, I'm gonna use my arrows here for up, down, left, right. Pick a start button here. I'm gonna use enter on mine. Whatever you want as your select button, and then A, B, X, Y, L, R, left trigger, right trigger. I'm not gonna do anything for the left thumb, right thumb, the analogs. And then these you could just skip. The way you skip it, you just hold a button that any button down, but you gotta hold it, and it's gonna skip through it. Okay. And then when we get to the final one here, hotkey, I like to select this as my select button. So whatever you put on the keyboard as your select, make that as your hotkey. Mine is the space bar, and then hit A. Okay, whichever on the keyboard is your A button, and there you go. So our keyboard is configured. We're able to navigate now through our keyboard on here. Using this on here is going to be very helpful. Next, let's put in the joysticks here. So we're going to hit start on the keyboard, go down to configure input again, hit your A button. Are you sure you want to? We're going to say yes, and we're going to be back to this dialog. Now we're going to input our joystick here. So hold any button on player 1. It's going to bring this up. Here we go again. Up, down, left, right. My start is going to be my player 1 on here. So I'm going to hit start. Now, if you have a select button, let's say you didn't put another button on here, or let's say you have a coin door on here, you'll drop your quarter in there for your select button. I do not have a select button on here, so I'm going to skip it. So I'm going to hold start, and it's going to skip it for me. So if you're using like me, you don't have that extra button, just hit start. We don't need that select button. And then now the way I have all my buttons inputted, I forgot to mention, on the USB encoder, I have this as my first button, which is button 0. Okay, and then I just go down the row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on there. So that's how it's connected. Okay, so it's going to be button 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's my button 0, which is the start. And now A, B, X, Y, L, R. I'm just going to go down the road here. A, B, X, Y, L, R. And that's it. I have no further buttons. So we're going to skip the rest on here. If you happen to have additional buttons, you could configure them in on here at this point. But for me, we're going to skip that. And then my hotkey on here, mine is going to be the start button here. If you have a select button, you want to make that as your hotkey, you could. But I'm going to use the start button here for me. And then click A for OK. So we got our gamepad 1 inputted. Now we're going to need to do our second one. Hit your A button here again under configure input. Yes. And then let's do this one. We just got to hold the button down. It's going to bring up the dialog here again. And once again, up, down, left, right. Hit your start button. I'm going to skip this again. And then again, A, B, X, Y, L, R. We're going to be able to configure those, so don't worry about that. Just remember where your keys are. Like I said, I do it the easy way. Just connect them straight across, you know, top 3 and then the bottom 3. And, you know, and it's just button 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when later on when we're going to configure the inputs, I know which button is where. Okay, and that's done. So gamepad 1 and 2 have been now inputted, so we'll be able to navigate now with both joysticks, our keyboards, and everything set to go. Lastly, what we want to do on here, go into the options screen, and we gotta pull up right here, RetroArch. Okay, because we're gonna need to enter in our hotkey functions on here. Okay, and once we're in here, go down to settings, hit and then go to input. Okay, and it'll bring you this dialog box here. Down here is our hotkey binds, and here's our player 1 and player 2. First thing I want to finish, I want to get that select button in. So we're gonna go to press A over here on user 1 binds. Okay, and then under the select button, we're going to select our start button again. So start button is going to be for both our select and start. Okay, everything else is inputted already on here from the initial emulation configuration. And I'm just going to save auto config on here. Alright, so I just added the select button there, that's all. And like I said, my start button is going to be both my select and my start. I'm going to do the same thing here for player 2 right now. There's nothing for select, so we're going to press A and then hit start on player 2. So now button O is our select and also our start. Okay, we're going to save auto config. You don't have to do this if you have a select button already, then leave it as it is on here. But if you're using like me with no additional buttons, make your start button as both the select and the start. What that will allow us is when we hit the player 1, it's going to drop in coins as well. It's going to be our coin and our start button. Alright, then we go to our hotkey binds. This is where we set up the hotkeys. Okay, the first one here, if you have your keyboard as the space button as your hotkey, you may want to change the first line here. I'll make it to W. This way, when you press the space bar, it doesn't. It would enable the fast forward on there. So to get rid of that. Now, if you look on here, the ones that have key is just a keyboard, but the ones that have the auto, they're automatically inputted for the buttons on here. And so those you have to either use or change on here. The quit RetroArch is going to be the one that's going to exit us from the games, you know, so when we want to exit back to the menu. And on here, I'm going to make that as this jab button. Okay, so if you want to make it something else, you could, but the images on there is going to have this as the exit button. So basically, I'm going to hold my hotkey and jab to exit out. Okay, so it's going to be hotkey plus the jab button. Okay, and just make sure here on the bottom, your hotkey is the one that you want. Mine is the start button, which is button 0, which it is, so that's fine. I'm going to leave it. Now, if you want other functions to be working on here with the hotkey, like the menu toggle to bring up this menu on here, you could set this one, which is, I have it right now, it's button 3. But if you want to do it, and you could do any of these, any ones that you want as your joystick buttons on here, you would just change that here. Okay, you would input that. Now, if you want to make it user-friendly where the only hotkey function will be to exit the game and nothing else, that means none of these other buttons will do anything on here, the way you do that is just input the same one, your exit button on here, which is the jab. I'm going to set that on all the ones that say auto, besides the hotkey on here. So this one right here needs one, so I'm going to put that as my jab button. Same thing here, auto. Alright, so that'll be the button 1. Same thing here. And when I trigger the hotkey with the one button, it's automatically going to quit out this, so it's not going to do any of the other functions on there, which is going to exit the game out. But if you wanted that, or let's say you wanted like the reset game, and you wanted to make it the B button here, okay, just change that to that. So however you want to set this up, that's up to you on here. Like I said, if you set it up this way, the only hotkey function on the joystick will be to exit out. Now you're still going to have the function to go into the menu and all this. Like you have here, the menu toggle is number 3, which is, for me, it's my button X. Okay, is my number 3 on the keyboard. So the keyboard will still have all the functions on here. Okay, so that's why on here I don't have anything else for my joystick. I like to keep it user friendly, so my kids or my family, friends that use this do not, enter this menu or anything else. All right, and then we're gonna, once we have everything set here, let's back out, press B again, and then one more time. Okay, then once we're here, go down to configuration file, press A, and save current configuration. Make sure you hit that. That will save all the changes we've made to our RetroArch configuration file. Okay, once we have that, we could quit out of here. So our hotkeys are set, our coin button is set on here. So everything's done on here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the games on here, and we're going to configure the buttons for the games itself on there. So this way we have, like our roundhouse kick or short kick, everything's working on there. Plus, if we want to change anything on the dip switches on here. Now this one that I'm using on here is the Street Fighter one. We also got to make sure we're running the right emulators for the ROM. So we're going to do all that. I'm going to go back to the computer now. I'm going to show you guys how to transfer all the files on here. Alright, so once that's set on here, we got our controls set up, everything's ready, good to go. Now we want to bring in our games, our images and everything. Now in order to do that, we want to set up our Wi-Fi so we can remotely transfer this stuff over through the PC. Unless you're doing it through the USB, then you would plug the USB. But I'm going to do it remotely on here, and first we need to set up our Wi-Fi on here. So you're going to go into the options screen and then go down to Wi-Fi. Now mine is already set. I'm already connected on here, so I don't have to do this. But you would connect to your Wi-Fi here, input your Wi-Fi. That's where you would do that. Okay, I'm going to exit out. And then if you need to get your IP, because you're gonna need the IP on there, so because you got to be connected both on your computer and over here, it has to be on the same channel. You will get your IP right here. Lastly, I would recommend going into the Raspberry configuration screen, which is this on here. Once you have your Wi-Fi set up and everything, go down to interfacing options, which is the number 5, and make sure SSH, this one on here, SSH is enabled. Okay, so would you like to enable? And you're going to answer yes. Okay, that needs to be enabled. And then also, let me go back. Also under the advanced options, I would recommend right here, expand file system. Just in case, I mean, it should automatically have expanded this once you wrote it into the SD card, but just in case it didn't, let's hit that on here just to be safe. This will resize everything on here. Okay. And then we're going to click finish. And alright, so once we're done there, I'm going to reboot on here, and I'm going to join you guys on the computer. I'll be using a Mac. If you're on the Mac, I recommend downloading CyberDuck on there. And then on Windows, you're on the Windows PC, it's called WinSCP is what you want to use on there. They both pretty much do the same thing. And basically what you're going to need to pull down the drop down is the SFTP on the protocol. Host name is going to be RetroPie, all caps. And then your username is Pi, P-I. And the password is Raspberry, R-A-S-P-B-E-R-R-Y. And then that lets you connect to your Raspberry Pi here. So it's the same thing on there. It's just going to look a little bit different, but I'm going to go to the Mac now. Alright, so I got CyberDuck pulled up on here. First we're going to need to connect remotely here. So bring up the dialog box here. On the drop down, make sure you select this one, the SSH File Transfer Protocol. That one's selected. On the server, we're going to go to RetroPie, all caps, and then username is Pi, and password's going to be Raspberry. Once you have that inputted on here, everything looks good. Let's click connect, and this should connect us to our Raspberry device. There's our folders. Go into RetroPie. Here's the different folders. The one that we're going to need to change, go into ROMs. And then over here, here's the different emulators. The only one we're concerned about is Arcade. And this is where the main ROMs folder is. So we're going to go to our folder, pull up the Street Fighter folder. Here's the images, marquee, and ROMs. We'll go to ROMs. And the only emulator using on here so far is the Final Burn Alpha. So we're going to select that. And then we're going to bring all 3 of these files into that arcade folder. So let's copy those. And then I'm going to paste them here. There we go. So we have all our 3 Street Fighters on here. Now we got to bring the images for this as well. So in the images folder, this is where the control layout will be. Let's go back to that Street Fighter folder here. Go to images, and let's bring these 3 to the Raspberry Pi. We're going to copy all 3 of these. Like I said, this is the game launching image right before the game loads. We're going to put that in our images folder. There we go, all 3. So all 3 games will have their launching image. Go back. Now we got to go to Marquee. This will show up when you select the games. So Go back to that Street Fighter folder once again. And then we'll go to the marquees. And let's copy all three of these. And then back to our application here. Let's paste those three here. So there you go. We got all three images. Our marquees are set. Our game launching images are all set. And we got our ROMs here. So that's how you're going to bring, anytime you bring in new images, folders, this is where you're going to go. And everything looks good. Alright, so we added in all our games, our images on here. Now, first thing we're just going to need to restart emulation because right now they're not on here. So just go hit start, go to quit, restart emulation station. Yes. Alright, when this boots up, the game should load up. There we go, our arcade classics. If we go there, we got our three games that we uploaded. Alright, before we go there, I'm going to go one more area. Go to options. And then go down here to run command configuration. Okay. Now the first dialog box here where it says launch menu, right now it's enabled. That's the box that pops up. It's going to say, you know, if you hit a button, you could change the emulator that you want to run for that ROM. Okay. Now, after we input everything, all our games, you could then disable this if you do not want that on there or anybody to, you know, press a button to access that accidentally. The second one we're going to leave as disabled. Third one you keep as enabled. That will allow us to press the start button to go past the image. Now number 4 we do want to change launch image delay. That is basically how long the image will stay up before, you know, when you got to press a button. Right now it's only on 2 seconds, so it's going to disappear rather quickly. So you could change that here to whatever, I don't know, put 120 seconds. So that's like 2 minutes. It's going to stay up on there. You could change it to whatever number you want on there. So basically it's not going to exit that image unless you press the start button or it goes past the 2-minute mark or whatever you set that on. If you want it to stay for, I mean, you could do, I don't know, 99999, you know. Exit there. Last thing we want to do here, go to your file manager. Okay. Now on here we could access our files here. On the bottom you will see the controls there. Number 4 is edit, but you got to press F4. It's not just the number 4. You got to put F4 for any of these on here controls. We want to first go to hit the 2 dots so you back up from here. Back up again, and then go to OPT/OPT. Select RetroPie. Then down here in supplementary. And then we want to go to run command. Run command. Now, what run command does, it uses Joy2Key, and that's where basically it says, you know, right now as default it's set as the A button, but we want to change that because on our images it's going to say to press the player 1 to continue. So the way we do that, we highlight Joy2Key, then press F4. Okay, that'll get us here. It's going to say here, we're going to pick number 2, easiest method, enter. Alright, then we got to scroll down with your keys, go down a bit. Keep going until right here, where it says number getting configured for D-pad, buttons A, B, X, and Y. Okay, we want to change A. This one right here, delete the A and put start. What that will do, instead of using the default A button to continue, whatever we mapped our start button, and we have that as our player 1 start, and that's what we want. Once we do that, hit Control X, and that's going to ask here to save changes. You're going to put Y for yes, and then click Enter. Alright, so that's saved. Once again, that was Control X, Y, Enter. That brings us back here, so changes have been made. Then to quit is F10, right there, 10. So we press F10 on the keyboard, and we're done. Okay. Now we want to pick a game here. We're going to set up our controls, change any type of dip switches that we want to do. So I'll pick Street Fighter. Alright, it's going to load the image here on here. As you can say, press player 1 to continue, press 1 and A to return to menu. So this is going to stay here. I set it on like 9,900 seconds, so it's not going to disappear here for a while. And as you can see, we could press any button here. It's not going to do anything here to the image. Okay, we would have to press our start button on it. That's what we wanted. So that's what we just did. We changed that so it's for the start button, and we're gonna press that. And let me hit a. I forgot. So we gotta set our emulator. So let's go back there. So after we wanna bring up the dialog box on here. Okay. This is like I said, the only reason the box did not come up because we have that image on there. If you want that box on there, then you could always add the image later on after you set this. It's up to you. The first one is our default emulator. Now on the Street Fighter Cab, they're mainly going to use the Final Burn Alpha. Is the one you want. Okay, almost all of them do. And so we picked the first one on there. And we're gonna pick this one here, LRFBNEO. Okay, that's the Final Burn Alpha emulator we want to use for all our Street Fighter games. Okay, and that will be the default. So we don't have to set this for the other ones unless we're using a game that uses a different one. And when you bring this up again, let's say you do add in a game that uses, let's say, MAME or Advanced MAME. Set it as the emulator for the ROM, not the first one, because the first one will set for every game. So you want to do number 2 if you're going to do something else. But the default on the Street Fighter, I recommend keeping it as the Final Burn Alpha, which is set. So we're not going to have to do this again for the other Street Fighters because it's going to run. Then we're going to launch the game. So now anytime it's going to pretty much use that as our, there we go. It's loading up. Alright, so it's booted up. Everything's good to go. Our coins is working. Start button for both is working on here. We're able to navigate both. But we got to set our buttons on here, and we also got to set if we want to make any changes to our dip switches. And now on the Final Burn Alpha, you cannot use the tab button. Tab is not on here. It's your hotkey and the X button, okay, which on my keyboard is number 3. Is going to bring up this dialog. If you set your menu on one of these buttons, you could just press the hotkey and that, and you bring this menu up on here, okay. If you go down to right here, options, in the options screen, this is where your switches. This is where you could, let's say, change your coins on here, how much credits for the coins. If, let's say, you want to change the difficulty, you want to change it to put free play on here or not, this is where you would make those type of changes, okay? If you want to change anything on here, go right ahead. If not, go down to controls. Okay. Now we're going to need to set our controls because our controls are going to be a lot different. see, this is where my buttons are. The first one on here is my button 2. Here's button 4, and that's why I said when you set this up, I recommend doing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so you know where my button 4 is right here. So the button 4 on here should be the weak kick, which is it. I'm sorry, the button 2 on here. Right now it's set up as weak kick, but it should be my strong punch. So we're going to change that. Just hit left or right here until you get to the strong punch. So that should be my button 2. Button 4 is my weak kick. So the weak kick, the coin and the star is perfect. This we don't have to change. Button 1 is right here. Should be the jab, should be the weak punch. So let's change that. Weak punch. Button 3 should be right here. Fierce punch. So that's the strong punch. Then 5 is our medium kick. And then button 6 is our strong kick. Alright, and then we're going to do the same thing here for player 2. Okay, once again, button 2 is our medium punch. 4 is our weak kick. 1 is our weak punch. Number 3 is our strong punch. And then medium kick and strong kick. Alright, strong kick here, medium kick, strong punch, weak punch. Alright, so everything looks to be good. Then you scroll back up here. Now normally I would just save it for the game on here, but I know that Street Fighter uses, like for all their fighting games, whether Street Fighter Alpha, or even the Marvel or the X-Men, Children of the Atom, they all have the same, Darkstalkers, they all have, weak punch, medium punch, strong punch. Same layout on here, weak kick, medium kick, strong kick. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to save as core. So this will do for all the games on here, as opposed to just this game. Okay, if you do save core, so I don't have to set my other Street Fighters, or let's say I bring in any other fighting games. But if I do bring, let's say, a game that has only like 2 buttons or 3, I may have to change it, and then I would just save the game. Or let's say you do want to go game by game on here to change that, then just do save game. Let's say you want to change like dip switches on the other one, you're going to go in here anyway, then just do that. But for me, I'm going to save it as the core on here. And now this is done for all the games. So that's set on here. If you made any type of changes, let's say to like the options there, here's your override. You could override, save the game overrides on here if you did make change. And that's it. And then after that, we could quit out of here. Let's quit RetroArch, and I'll show you it works if we, we'll pull up one of the other Street Fighters. Here's our dialog box. Hit the start button. See, it's already set on here, so I don't have to do it on here again. I just wanted to show you guys that. Launch the game. I got our credits. Got player 1, player 2 on here. Let me go into the game. So here's my weak punch, medium punch, and strong punch. Here's the kicks. Medium kick, roundhouse kick. Same thing with player 2. Roundhouse kick, medium, weak punch, medium. So yeah, so they all work on here. And then to exit out, press our jab and our start button and exit out. So that's set. It's done. All the controls, like I said, for all 3 Street Fighters is set. Now I could go back to my run command, where the first one here, since I have all my games set, I could disable this now on here. So now it's disabled. If you don't want that dialog box to come up to, where you select which emulators. Now, if I do add in additional games, obviously I'm gonna enable that back. So in case I have to make any changes, or if I don't, or if I add a game that, let's say it's a main game or something else that's not Final Burn Alpha. All right. So that's set on here. We have our games configured, our controls, everything set. We added it in the games. One last thing before we go to attract mode on here. We want to go to, let's go back to our RetroPie setup. Okay. Okay, and then you want to go to right here, configuration tools on here is the fourth one down. Hit enter, and then go here to auto start. Okay, and then manual edit auto start. Okay, third one down. Right now we have it set on emulation station. Okay, we want to get rid of that because anytime we let's say boot up this image, we want to go directly to attract mode. And the way we do that, we delete emulation station and just type in attract. Alright, so that's how it should look. Attract space number sign auto. Okay, and what, like I said, what that will do, just hit tab to get back to the bottom there, and then hit OK. What that will do is, like I said, it's gonna boot up into attract mode as opposed to emulation. Okay, we could always go back to emulation. When we hit escape to exit, we just type in emulation station to load that up. Same thing with attract. I'm going to show you now. I could reboot on there, or we could just exit out here, hit F4. Anytime you're on here, you could always go into either emulation station or you could go into attract mode. Okay, I want to get into attract, so type in attract. And I'll get us to, this is where attract mode now is. Or like I said, you could always have rebooted and it'll be set. Alright, now that we're in attract mode, we're going to need to set up our controls to navigate here, on here, and we're going to need to put in the games on here. So on your keyboard, hit the tab button. Let's do the controls first. So scroll up to controls. Hit enter. Okay. Right now, only the keyboard functions are entered on here. If you want a back button, like an exit button on here, that's the first one. Right now, it's our escape button on here. Okay. If you wanted to add input, you put on here add input, and then if you want to use like your B button or whatever. All right. We're definitely gonna need this up to scroll up. So we're gonna hit add input, then on your joystick just click up. So now we have, oops, I did that one wrong. Let me remove that. You can simply just remove it. Add input, joystick up. Okay, now if you want player 2 to be able to navigate on here as well, we could add another input and then do the same here for player 2. So now we have player 1 and player 2 to be able to use the up action. Alright, let's back out. Let's do the same thing for down. Down right here. And down right here. Okay, so both our joysticks will be able to function there. You do want to pick select. This is when you're selecting a game, or right here when you're in the menu to select. So we want that as our A button. Okay. And like I said, you could also do it here for player 2. If you only want player 1 to be able to control the main menu, then like I said, you don't have to. You could always remove. Just don't remove the keyboard functions, because then you might be stuck. Alright. Here's your next filter. If you add in, let's say, like favorites or like a filter on here, that'll be the key on there. If you want to make it one of these buttons, you could change that. Tab button is to bring up this options menu configuration. You could also make it as one of these buttons if you'd like. To add favorites, make one of your game's favorites. Right now on the keyboard is F. You could change that. You could add a joystick button if you want. Edit a game on here. It's the space bar. That could be changed. You could do it right on the joypad as well. And then here's your joystick threshold as far as sensitivity. If you want to change it, make sure if you do change it, you got to reboot for it to actually appear function. So don't go too high or too low and think it's not working, because when you reboot, the effects will take place. And then once we're done, we could back out of there. Okay. Then the next thing, let's put the make the games appear on our list. And this you always will need to do as well. Anytime you add in new games to your image on here, click emulators. Go up to arcade. That's where we have all our ROMs, and then scroll down here to generate collection ROM list. Okay. Anytime you make new changes, add in. Just how Emulation Station, you have to reboot Emulation Station, and then they're added in here. Here you have to click this generate ROM list. So we're going to hit enter, override existing list, yes. And then now when we back out, click back. There we go. We have all our games, our controllers here. We'll be able to navigate, select what game we want, with both player 1 and player 2, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Like I said, A button will select the game. We'll have our image, and same thing, player 1 will continue. So all our functions on here are set. Exit out of the game, you know. I added another bonus feature on here. It's not Arcade 1-Up related, but I know a lot of guys do like the 60:1 image. If you hit tab under displays, go to arcade. Right now it's on the 1-Up layout. Okay, if you hit start, there's one on here called 60:1, and that's the right now. I'm not gonna have the images show up. I'm just gonna show you guys. If you do 60:1, back up. That's the iCade61, and the images, like I said, will show up on here. You gotta use screenshots. In the arcade folder, there's a folder called Snap, and that Snap folder, you gotta put the screenshot of the games, and those would appear on here. So that's just an added bonus, like I said, that I did for people that want to do like that 60:1 mod. You could do it right here, right in the Raspberry Pi. You don't need to get that whole board. Once again, the display we're using is the 1-Up. But yeah, that's that takes care of for the Street Fighter. Like I said, right now I have just the default games on here that come with the cab. Each week I'm gonna update new games on here. I'll release like a pack of, I don't know, 5 or 10 games on here. Use the comments below on here. Let me know which ones you guys want me to do first to add in on here. I'll add them along, like say, each week, depending on time permitted. I'll try to add in like 5 to 10 images on here. So you're not going to need to download the image again or set your controls again on here. You'll just add in the ROMs and the images just how you added these 3 on here every time. So you'll just need to set controls for those games and stuff. Everything else will be set. You don't have to you know, redo everything on here. So I think this is probably going to be the best way doing this on here, and I'll get to all the other cabinets as well. Let me know what you guys think, and then like I said, if you want to add in your on and off switch and your volume switch on there, I have the tutorials on there. There's an update on this one. Actually, somebody pointed out in the comments where you don't have to flip the switch in there. You just got to add that in the script. I updated that in the description part. Or you could use the method number 2, which, like I said, does the same thing. If none of those work for you, there's also the option of the Mulberry circuit board switch, Or, like I said, some people are not using the arcade 1-up. They want to use this image, let's say on a board top or something that doesn't have the switches. Well, I just wanted the image to be available to everybody on here. So let me know what you guys think. That's the Street Fighter, and I'm gonna go down the line each cabs. I'll have these out much quicker because it's not much games that I'm adding to them. So I'm hoping to get these out within the next couple days. All right, fellas, take it easy.